Thank you, Judy. I would like to call to order the council meeting for May 16th, 2022. With that, I'll pass it over to Kathy Hoffman to do the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would be my honor to do so. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Anishinaabe Nation. The spot where we gather is the traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water.
Okay, and we'll pass over to Judy for the supplementary agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do not have a supplementary agenda this evening, and we have been notified that there are two pecuniary interests with regards to Councillor Solomon on planning item 10F and Councillor Thompson on the item 14B, the tender award for municipal grass cutting. And we'll hand it over to planning services.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. This is Ryan Jocks, Director of Planning Services. The planning process to be followed for each application will be as follows. 1, the clerk will announce each individual planning item. 2, the clerk will advise if any written submissions have been received regarding a planning item. If so, the clerk will read the written submissions that have been received. 3, for any items where a written submission is received, administration will proceed with the presentation. 4, council will be asked what action, or if it has any questions of administration or the applicant if present. And 5, council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect of the proposed applications does not make a submission to the municipal clerk of the corporation of the municipality of Chatham-Kent before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or who have made a submission regarding a particular planning item will receive a notice of council's decision, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. Thank you.
Item 10A, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Vantel Construction Inc, 11030 Burke Line, Community of Harwich, South Kent. Mr. Mayor, we have not received any deputations and the applicant is not on the line.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move that, Mayor Caniff.
Happy to second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in, motion passes 14-0. 10B, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Corridor Air Ltd, 9 Victoria Ave, Community of Chatham City. Mr. Mayor, there are no deputations this evening and the applicant is not on the line.
Councillor Bondi and Councillor Solomon, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff. Thank you.
Seconded, Your Worship.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in, motion passes 14-0. 10C, application for zoning bylaw amendment, First Family Homes Inc, Lance Boulevard, Community of Blenheim, South Kent. No deputations have been received and the applicant is not on the line.
Councillor Latimer and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
And seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in, motion passes 14-0. 10D, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Gary and Debra Balloch, 6482 Baseline, Community of Dover, North Kent. No deputations have been received and the applicant is not on the line.
Councillor McGrail and Councillor Foss, can I get you to move this, please?
Sure, I'll move this.
Seconded.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 14-0. 10E, application for zoning bylaw amendment 2457478 Ontario Inc. 81 Queen Street North, Community of Tilbury, West Kent. No deputations have been received and the applicant is not on the line.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Sakachi, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
Seconded, Mayor Caniff.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in, motion passes 14-0. And the finding planning application is 10F, application for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. Sankofa Capital Corp, 868 to 866 Park Ave West, Community of Chatham City. Councillor Solomon has declared a conflict of interest and we have one deputation to read on this item and the applicant is not on the line. The first deputation is, I am emailing you today to ask that the proposed land change not be given and remain commercial office business space. All the residents on McIntosh Ave have been mailed the proposal and I must admit, I am very upset. Our street has been put up with so many inconveniences this past several years that I wish I never stepped foot in this city. We have endured last summer, no enjoyable outdoor space as Maple City built homes on Howard Ave and created a continual dust storm. They finally finished and have increased the traffic flow with every home having 2 to 3 cars and to walk across Howard at times impossible with traffic whipping around the corner. Presently, we have first families building on Jonathan Street right behind our units, another dust storm of construction, and now have forever lost our privacy and use of patio space. Our street is senior living, not families with children. This proposal is now directly in front of us. We have homeowners now and in the process of putting courtyards in front of our homes to have outdoor space. And now we face this proposed 2-story, 4-unit home rental units being proposed. Not only is it unsafe, it is in such a confined space that forces people to back onto the privacy to green space. There is no 2-story housing on this block and does not fit within the present look. We want privacy and protection over our private road. We have only one window in our front of our homes and a bedroom window and a patio door in the back of the units. This is impacting our environment. This small site is not adequate to have multi-unit build. Why have bylaws when they are always changed and not enforced? This application should never be allowed to come up. Please say no to shortcuts that will have negative impact on people who already live here. Thank you, Margaret Gibson.
Mr. Jacques?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The municipality has received an application for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 866 to 868 Park Avenue West. This is in the vicinity of the intersection of Park Avenue West and Howard Road in the community of Chatham. The nature of the official plan amendment being proposed is to redesignate the land use policy for this particular property from office and service in the southwest of Chatham secondary plan to medium density residential. The nature of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from urban commercial office and service zoning to a medium density residential zoning that would permit the development of a 4-unit row home or townhome. Each of the townhome units has an approximate ground floor area of 890 square feet. It is also recommended to council that the properties be placed temporarily into a holding provision, which would restrict the development of a residential use on these lands until the property is connected adequately to the municipal storm network. That is concurrently an ongoing process that the applicant will be pursuing should these applications be approved tonight. If these applications are approved and the adequate storm sewer connection is made, an application to remove the H holding symbol will come back before council at a later date before any home construction would begin on this site. With respect to the letter, certainly this area of Chatham has seen a significant amount of construction in the general area over the past 2 to 4 years. Abutting this property to the south and east is a private residential development consisting of a number of residential townhomes. There are recently a new private street that's been constructed, as well as a number of new dwellings. As well, to the south across Howard, there has been an existing subdivision building out there for a number of years. So understandable that this has caused some nuisance and concerns to the residents in the area. And that is likely to continue until the construction in this general area is largely completed over the next couple of years as well. It is recommended that official plan amendment D09C0422S, being official plan amendment number 71, in part of lot 20, concession 2, eastern boundary, community of Chatham, to redesignate the lands within the southwest quadrant secondary plan to medium density residential area be approved and the implementing bylaw be adopted. It's also recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application file D14C1422S to implement official plan amendment number 71 at the same property to rezone the parcel into a holding residential medium density first zone, which would A, restrict development until such time as the property is adequately serviced, and B, permit row house dwellings and include the following site-specific regulations. 1.68 meter interior side yard width for an end unit, 40% lot coverage, 11.5% lot coverage for an accessory building, a minimum 27.5 square meters for outdoor living area per row house dwelling unit, and an exemption from section 4.2.1A of the zoning bylaw to admit a detached garage in the front yard of the property be approved and the implementing bylaw be adopted. Thank you.
Councillor Finn and Councillor Crew, can I get you to move this, please?
So seconded, your worship.
I'll move it.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Sorry. All votes are in and motion passes 12-0.
We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, there are no deputations this evening on the remaining items. And on the consent agenda, we have 2 items, item 13A and 14A. We have 14B that's withdrawn to vote on separately due to the conflict of interest, and Councillor Sakachi wishing to speak to it. So on the consent agenda for approval, we have item 13A and 14B. Or sorry, 14A, I apologize.
Councillor Hall and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
So moved, Mayor Cannon.
Happy to second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 14-0.
We'll go on to item 14, tender awards.
Thank you. 14B, tender award contract T22-100 municipal grass cutting. We have a conflict of interest by Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Wright, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
I'll second it. Thank
And Councillor Sakachi, you had some questions?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I did have some questions. I guess I through some consultation with the staff and the clerk, some of my questions will probably be even better answered in a note of the motion. But I do have a couple questions to Mr. T-Bear. So I'm just getting some feedback. Is that on my end or?
I think you're good to go now. I think they muted.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. T-Bear, just a couple quick questions for you. I know I'm probably not the only councillor that's kind of seen some significant concerns related to the grass complaints of recently. So since that we're seeing several complaints and concerns regarding the long grass throughout the municipality and the municipality owned and managed lands, and seeing the municipal contractors usually discussed a little bit earlier, can you just speak to why we're awarding the contracts so late in the year?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Camp. This is Chris Teber, Acting General Manager, IES. So back in May, March the 7th council meeting, we proceeded to provide direction to council to extend the contract, the current grass contract, for one more year to allow us time to look at the contract as a whole, to clean it up in an effort to identify some cost savings with the report and factor in some of the new bylaws and policies that we have in place with respect to our long grass and weed bylaw, and then come back to council later on this year with a new 5-year contract, which we're still proposing to do later this year and for the next following 5 years. So as part of that process, we went out and we negotiated with all the contractors that we had currently in place from the previous contract, and a fair amount of them were not able to perform the duties that we were looking for. We were not able to negotiate the terms of the contract, and we were forced then to go back out for tender fairly quickly and try to get some tender packages and some contracts drawn up in a fairly timely manner, recognizing the time sensitivity of the grass and the contracts here. So we were successful with approximately 55% of the contract with the negotiations with the contractors to get new contracts in place for the 1-year extension, but the remaining percentage there, we had to go back out for tender, which is what's being presented tonight. So this tender tonight is for a 1-year extension for all the remaining lands that we did not have successful negotiations with. And we are ready we have all these contractors lined up immediately following approval of this report tonight, should they be approved, to get the contractors out there ASAP to start performing all the duties, because we recognize that there's a lot of areas that have been neglected the past couple of weeks. And the team, I just really want to give a big shout out there to our Parks and Rec team, our Public Works team, even the PUC team, for putting together some short contracts to get us by while we had this tender out. We were very quick with the team here. The engineering team there was really quick to put this contract together with the legal team and purchasing team. It was very challenging because we had a fair amount of contractors submit bids and then drop out. But ultimately, we finally now have a term or a contract to move forward with for this year. But it was very time sensitive, and we are ready to pull the trigger on this immediately tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. T-Bear. I guess just one quick follow-up question, if you don't mind. So I know obviously when we're talking about fields and sports fields, those are going to take precedent, so they can go out and play their sports. Just wanted to follow up on the cemetery. So I know that there's we're probably significantly behind on a lot of parcels. Are fire halls and cemeteries going to take precedent when we're trying to catch these up? So, a lot of I happened to go by Maple Leaf Cemetery on my way home today, seen it was significantly overgrown. And I know that, a lot of families have concern about, our cemeteries being upkept. So just wanted to make sure that, there's going to be a process to trying to catch up, and, parcels like the cemetery and sports fields are going to be, take us kind of center stage, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for the question. So we do have a contractor, like I said, lined up specifically for Maple Leaf Cemeteries, but as well as all the other cemetery sites identified under this contract to get them out immediately tomorrow. Of course, pending the weather. I think they are calling for good weather tomorrow, thankfully. They are lined up with a crew of approximately 10 staff on site tomorrow at that cemetery to perform one, possibly two cuts, really to get it back down to an acceptable manner, and then maintaining that contract, like I said, for the remainder of this year.
Thank you, Mr. Tiber, and I do recognize that the way how it folded out, there were some challenges to get this tender out, and I know we are significantly behind, but I do want to thank staff for getting out as fast as possible, because upkeeping these areas are obviously a significant importance, especially to those who have lost some of their significant others. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Chris, I'm kind of curious. I've read the report a couple of times, and so these are going to sound like probably uneducated questions, but here I am. So what's really changed from last year or from the previous contract? Did we have a local contractor? I thought it was a local company that did this stuff. Just my only experience is at the cemetery, because I've been there, right? And I've seen, who's cutting the grass. As far as the other facilities, no, I'm not aware, but was there a change? Did we have a company that declined to take on the new contract?
Thank you, Mayor Camp. So yeah, as mentioned before, there was we tried to negotiate with all of the existing contractors that we had on board last year for all the same parcels, with the exception of a few in cemeteries that were having some performance issues. And then ultimately with the negotiation ability that we had, approximately 40% or 35% of the contractors declined, and they were not therefore successful, forcing us to go back out again for tender and re-tender those groups or those packages out. So we are seeing some new contractors on board compared to previous years, and then some of the other contractors now picking up some packages that they didn't have before. But ultimately, it's only representative of about 35% of the contract that we had to go out now for a new tender and get some new contractors on board. That answer your
Great,
question?
thank you. Thank you, Chris. Is this typical to have a number of different contractors doing the grass cutting for the municipality? Or, and again, I should probably know this stuff after 12 years, but I guess I haven't paid terribly close attention to grass cutting. But is that typical that there would be? And I know it's such a vast municipality that geographically I get that, but I'm just asking, is it kind of a typical practice of Chatham-Kent, not other municipalities, because we're very unique in many ways, but that there would be all these different contractors rather than one, which would take care of all of the municipality's needs?
Thank you for the question. Note that this is typical, at least in the time that I've seen this contract now, the previous 5-year contract, and then even the one prior to that. On average, we do receive about 8 to 10 different contractors managing this overall contract. And we found that splitting it up into these smaller packages makes it a lot more of an attractive package for some of these smaller companies that might not have all the larger equipment, the larger machinery. So it's really kind of helping provide an opportunity for a lot of contractors out in the municipality.
Oh, which makes sense, because I guess maybe one smaller company wouldn't have the ability to handle the overwhelming job that we have.
That's correct.
Okay, great. That makes sense. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Mayor Canada.
Thank you.
Councillor Solomon. Councillor Solomon, you're on mute.
There, somebody muted me, I guess. Okay, so if this is through your worship to Chris, before we approve this tonight, if we do, who's been cutting the grass at Maple Leaf Cemetery up till now?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So I believe we had a temporary contract in place just to get us by while this tender was out. I will have to confirm. I believe it was, let me see if I can get a copy of that.
Okay, I'll tell you why I'm asking. I've had complaints at Maple Leaf Cemetery in particular. And before I say that, though, I want to recognize that I've been seeing every year we have this same situation, and it's it's not the contractor or administration's fault that the grass grows so quickly. Any of us who have our own lawns, I mean, I can tell you I've cut mine twice a week, every week since April. We've had a lot of rain and this is the time when it grows quickly. But at Maple Leaf Cemetery, I've received complaints, and I went out and looked myself, that grass was from the lawnmowers being shot out and hitting gravestones. So my first question is it the same group who are going to get the contract tonight?
Okay, so I do have an email here from Colin Martling. He couldn't be available for council tonight, but he didn't acknowledge who the temporary contractor who we had in the interim here operating and managing, but he did recognize that we're having performance issues with them and the note that you made about shooting the grass being not acceptable. But I can confirm for certain that the group being recommended tonight, which is TDE group identified, they are not the ones that have been there. They will be new and they will be performing the level of service that's required for that cemetery.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And when you make this recommendation, recognizing that some of these are smaller groups, do you have a machinery performance standard? In other words, do you check to see whether they have those shields that prevent the grass from shooting out onto the tombstones and things like that?
Thank you for the question. I do believe there is a machinery check as part of this contract. I believe that is something that our purchasing department assists with. That is a requirement of the contract. But the absolute specifics with regard to shielding and whatnot, I can definitely confirm that and get back to council on that.
Well, I'm quite satisfied with your response between you and Mr. Martling. If you can just ensure that that doesn't happen anymore, it'll make a lot of constituents very happy. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes 13-0.
We'll move next to notice of motion. Councillor Sakachi has two of them. So Councillor Sakachi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, here provide notice that I'll be bringing the following motion forward on the meeting of Monday, May 30th, whereas administration will be working on the RFP for the 2023 and beyond municipal grass cutting, and whereas preparedness, consistency, and notice are the utmost importance when approving and discussing a tender of this magnitude. Be it resolved that the CAO appoint one single division to be in charge of municipal grass cutting for all parcels of grass throughout the municipality, including the POC properties, to ensure continuity, consistency, and ownership of the grass cutting operations. 2, administration develop a 5-year tender package for the 2023-2028 municipal grass cutting to be issued in the fall of 2022 and brought to the new council at the November 21st or December 5th council meeting for approval ahead of the 2023 budget to provide successful bidders with adequate time to purchase equipment and hire staff for the 2023 year. And 3, administration submit an internal bid to the 2023-2028 tender, including fully burdened cost to compare the external bids for council consideration to ensure value for tax dollars. That is my first one there. I'm just going to give me 1 second, Mayor Caniff. Thank you. I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, here provide notice. I'll be bringing the following motion for the May 30th meeting of council for voting discussion. Whereas the driving forward transit strategy adopted by council envisioned all Chatham-Kent residents the ability to access sustainable transit services to support urban growth and daily life. And whereas the driving forward transit study recommended the establishment of community routes or their equivalent in partner provided services in order to meet the vision and ensure all residents have access to critical services they need to support a healthy community. And whereas due to low ridership, municipal council removed public transit route S1, the beach bus, from base budget in 2020, which provided seasonal transit services to communities of Erio and Mitchells Bay. And whereas inflation and gas prices have made access to affordable transit services critical to the daily lives of many rural Chatham-Kent residents. Be it resolved, administration prepare a report with recommendations on how to improve access to affordable, accessible, and convenient transit services for rural Chatham-Kent residents, consistent with the driving forward transit strategy, with considerations to the current interurban network, on-demand technology, existing transit partners, fares, structure, and new opportunities. The report should be brought to for information purposes prior to the October 22nd meeting, so recommended transit services changes or enhancements can be incorporated into the 2023 budget.
We'll move on to closed session reports. Councillor C. McGregor, and if I can get Councillor Crew to second that, please.
Thank you. And I would move, those absent tonight were Councillor Oche, Harrigan, Kirkwood White, B. McGregor, and Councillor Wright. Council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase part of property identification number 005990232 Uncle Tom's Road, Community of Dresden, Section 2392C, the Municipal Act 2001, and a proposed disposition of land by the municipality with regard to offer to purchase property identification number 005840208 Mason Street, Wallaceburg, Section 2392C in the Municipal Act 2001.
Seconded.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 13-0.
We'll move on to non-agenda business. Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, sir, your worship. I actually have two items. The first item is to remind everyone that the 2022 Chatham-Kent Celebration of Older Adults happens in about 2 weeks, and we want everyone to tune in on our municipal website or your TV at 10 a.m. where we will have a presentation by Dr. Jamie Richards from Design by Life, a Q&A question and answer period, and then we will be announcing the Chatham-Kent Senior of the Year, along with mentioning and recognizing all those nominated for this important award for 2022. And secondly, I want to give a shout out to a couple of young gentlemen from Corp who recently competed at the National Plowing competition out in Manitoba earlier this month. Many of you will recognize this name, Matthew Sterling. He is again the Junior Canadian Conventional Champion after his performance at the Canadian Plowing Championship in Rivers, Manitoba. And he is also the recipient of the Canadian Plowing Organization Scholarship, which is to be used towards his post-secondary education. His older brother, Brian, is also to be commended. He placed third in the senior conventional class. So both these young men represent Chatham-Kent and do us proud. And will be again competing in the national international plowing match later this year, and again at the national Canadian event in 2023. So hats off to Matthew and Brian Sterling. Thank you.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to give a shout out to the Chatham Maroons for their success in winning the Western Conference, and they're heading to the Sutherland Cup. So everyone that can support our local Maroons, give them a shout out and support them. Maybe the mayor can get into a little friendly competition with the competition for the Sutherland Cup.
Councillor Crew, that would be a great idea, because we'll be going to Leamington next month and presenting the jersey to the mayor there, which we'll have a little fun with. With that, I see no other non-agenda business. We'll go to the first and second reading. Councillor Solomon and Councillor Pinsino.
Moved, your worship.
And I'll second that, your worship.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading will be brought to you by the letter F. So Councillor Foss and Councillor Finn, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved, Your Worship.
This time I'll get it right. So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The resolution of council in closed session adjournment. Councillor C. McGregor, and can I get Councillor Thompson to wrap it up for us tonight?
Thank you. And through the mayor, I would move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, May 30th, 2022, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
And I would second.
Anyone opposed to closing at 6:36? Hearing none, we'll wrap it up and have a wonderful night enjoying this beautiful weather.